live stream event. I'm Steve Clark and I'm delighted to welcome our guests this evening, Mr Parrish and Maria Costello. Welcome.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Maria, this is a first for me, and I have to tell you, at my time of life, there's not many firsts that happen to me anymore now, but I'm getting to interview a lady, which is really, seriously, a great pleasure. We've done a number of events here at Brooklands. Great to see the enormous amount of guests we've got here tonight, but sadly they aren't here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because of COVID. It's been a nightmare. I'm going to start at the beginning in a minute, but to start with, how much has COVID ruined your life?
Wow, I mean, my year last year was the exact opposite of what it is normally. My family got to see me. I had some amazing...
Were they pleased about that?
It was, yeah, normally I'm away all the time racing, and it was the exact opposite. There was lots of good downtime, but then it just became a little bit too much, and I've really missed competing and being at the events and being around people. And yeah.
Very, very rude. I didn't properly introduce you to you. Obviously, one of the fastest ladies around the Isle of Man TT circuit. You've been racing for a number of years. Solos, sidecars. There must be an awful lot of ladies out there, and gentlemen for that matter, that admire your skills and ability to do what you're doing. But I want to start right at the beginning, because that's generally where we do. We do it in a chronological order, because I'm not very good at going backwards and forwards on things. How on earth did Maria Costello get to be riding and racing motorcycles? Where did it all begin? At what age?
I mean, late in life, because motorcycling was a mode of transport for me. It wasn't about racing to start off with.
So you had a bike on the road?
Yes. I was a veterinary nurse. I needed to be able to get to work. I didn't want to rely on my dad. And I was having car lessons. I'd failed my test twice.
Uh-oh.
Then friends of the family suggested, why don't you get a motorbike like our son Philip?
Did they like you?
I quite fancied Philip. He took me around the bike shops. Ultimately, I fell in love with a TZR 125.
This is a friend that sort of introduced you to him, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of went around the bike shops to pacify him and try and get to know him a bit better.
But I fell in love with the little Yamaha 125.
And did you have to do a test for that?
So I didn't have to do a CBT test then at the time, but I did, because that made my mum feel happier.
Okay.
She had to come into the shop, the bike shop, to sign the finance form, and she was looking at all the scooters, and then she was like, well, which one are you getting? And I pointed to the TZR, and she walked out the shop.
Sporty little number it was. Oh, okay.
It was.
Right.
Loved that.
So there's no history whatsoever in your family of the motorcycle?
No, and that's what made it difficult, because they just didn't understand it. It was scary and dangerous, and especially when I said about going to the Isle of Man, all they'd ever heard about was, bad news. Sure.
But hang on, we've jumped on a fair amount here, I'm sure. So road bike, 125, enjoyed it, loved it. That's still a long way away from going racing.
Yeah. Did fall in love with it. There was a group of lads that used to meet in my village, all with motorbikes. They invited me out one night. My parents never saw me then. And really fell in love with speed. But it was on my way to work one morning, riding out of the village.
On your 125?
Yeah, on my 125.
Had you paid off the finance? Or were your
just
mum?
about.
Had your mum paid off?
No, I paid.
Oh, okay, all right.
And a guy with dodgy eyesight in a car knocked me off. As my mum's walking down the road, obviously everybody knew me in the village, and the people come running out of the post office and the butchers. Oh gosh, it's Eileen's daughter, oh my word. And all I remember saying to mum was, put that cigarette out.
Petrol lady.
I didn't hurt myself. I mean, I was in hospital, I'd broken my pelvis, but didn't need any operations.
Didn't hurt yourself, you broke pelvis, right? Okay.
So these lads were brilliant. They brought my mum into the hospital, and she was like, right, that's the end of motorcycling then, yeah? But when they weren't bringing her in, they were bringing magazines into me and going, what are you going to buy with the compensation money? And that is what I did.
Okay.
I bought a race bike with a compensation.
Did you? I mean, it's a massive jump, is it? Had your mates that you rode bikes with and everything else, were they supportive of this? Or?
I'd gone from being a veterinary nurse to working in a motorbike shop.
Okay, then, hang on, there's another big jump here. Veterinary nurse working on any animals or any particular...
Yeah, no, we did everything in the practice I worked in, so small animals, farm animals, horses, and I loved it. I loved it, but something about... I used to go to this bike shop all the time socially. It was one of those that it was at that great time when it was a social place.
Is this where Paul worked, by the way?
It wasn't, that was Philip.
Philip, sorry.
No, he didn't work there.
Oh, right.
I remember just one of the guys behind the accessories counter saying, "Oh, Sid's looking for a new sales assistant." And I literally went down into his office and said, "Can I apply for that?"
Right.
Got the job, and I went from, and I had to do a lot of exams and training to qualify as a veterinary nurse. But
I was going to say, I mean, there must be a point sometimes, and particularly in what we've been going through recently, you thought, maybe I wished I'd stuck at being a veterinary nurse. Okay. Arguably, I mean...
Yes and no. I love what I do. I'm so glad I found it. It is the best thing I ever did.
Okay, so we now, I mustn't ask the lady what age you are, but you're now a sales assistant at the motorcycle shop in Northampton, was this?
Yeah,
what was it called?
Motorcycles. It's not even there anymore.
Okay,
it's been turned into flats.
Was it franchise dealer or something like that?
Yeah, so we had the majority of the franchises, including Ducati. I remember I was responsible for warranties for Ducatis. We had Motocinelli in the town, so...
Okay.
And then there was Neil Young Motorcycles around the corner, he had Honda.
Right.
But
you must have then at some point got your main test or to move up to a bigger CC?
Yeah. So I with that money, the compensation money, I didn't just buy a race bike. I bought a road bike as well. I looked completely spoiled. It was a good chunk of money.
Was it?
I
because
had two
the
RGBs.
person that knocked you off owned up to it and...
Yes, insurance, business, all that.
Okay.
I think I refused the first offer, so the second offer was better.
Right, okay.
But yeah, so it was like a lottery win for me, really.
Okay.
So I had one on the road, one on the racetrack. All the gear, no idea.
Right, yeah, we've all been there. So, I mean, I remember when I started racing, it was a bunch of mates and lads all kind of clubbing together to help out and everything. You must have had that, surely.
Well, that was the first idea. So I was working in a bike shop, made a lot more mates with bikes, and a couple of lads, we were all going to club together, buy a race bike and go racing. They had a friend that raced, he was going to help us, and we'd been to watch him race at Mallory Park, which was actually a really key moment because I saw Sandra Barnett race.
Right. Okay.
So it's the first ever race meeting I've been to and I see a woman competing.
Mm-hmm. It was rare in those days.
Yeah, of course, massively rare. She stuck out to me, and for sure that made a big impact. Mm-hmm. Those two guys got girlfriends. I got the race bike. I went racing. Their mate Dave Weston helped me. He was a Mallory specialist, really, on 250s. And I used to go and park up next to him and go racing.
Well, I mean, it's quite an extraordinary story because when you start looking now, there's very few people, I would have said, on the grid, male or female, that haven't got some kind of connection, often parents, fathers, whatever, raced or somewhere along the line. So it is quite unique to do. So your mother must have crapped herself.
Absolutely. So she'd already walked out of the shop when I bought my 125. Then Sandra Barnett and her husband, Peter, approached me. I think I'd won a race at Mallory. They came up to me and said, "We're going to put together an all-female team.
Okay.
We're going to run CBR 600s, and we want to race on short circuits, but the two girls will race at the Max Grand Prix and Sandra will race at the TT. Would you like to be part of that?" It was like getting a MotoGP ride. This was in my second year of racing.
TT got on the radar to you at this point?
One of my heroes was Steve Hislop. I think when I was in that, when I'd had that accident, he was in all of the magazines, and I really kind of hooked into that. Yeah, because I had the Alpine style boots like him and all of that stuff.
And he had a pink helmet. But Yeah, well, I can understand. Everyone was a big fan of Steve Hislop back then. But
So that's how
when
I
you
knew
told
about
your mother of the like to say, this must have been coronary time.
So this was at the launch of the all-female team, and I'd not told my mum.
So when they announced it, you went, oh, I didn't know that.
So Peter Barnett stands up and says, oh, Bridget and Maria will be racing at the Isle of Man. My mum walked out again.
Wow.
She left.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
I really can understand that.
And I know I've been a difficult daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know she came round to it because she came to a lot of the races and sort of followed it at that point. But I can't imagine it, and truthfully I can't. And I've got children and I really wouldn't want to race in the Isle of Man. I know that's the wrong thing to say because I did, and possibly it's hard to describe the satisfaction and the adrenaline and it's hard to describe, isn't it?
There aren't words.
No.
There aren't, because it's such a special feeling. And of course that was so difficult for my mum and my dad. And I had a few little documentaries filmed about me, and that's when I realised what I was putting them through still, because I could just see the terror in my parents and my sister. But I think
your sister thinks you're mad, does she?
Oh, you'll have to ask her.
Oh.
She used to get really cross when I used to hurt myself. She
Yeah.
used to get really cross.
All that visiting hospitals and diners, grapes and everything else that goes on.
Well, I didn't used to tell them all the time.
Oh.
I'd have operations they wouldn't know about because I didn't want to drag them through it. It was easier. I was very much doing it on my own, and it was kind of the only way.
I'm able to say it more maybe now because I've stopped doing it, but it is quite a selfish thing to do, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 'cause
Absolutely.
you're terrorising all the people around you.
Yeah, and I still am.
So how did you back then go to, because you've been going to the Isle of Man for some years now, how did you learn the Isle of Man? There wasn't the help that there is now, I don't think, was there?
No, so I did my first newcomers lap in 2019. That's 20 odd years after going to the...
What, you just wanted to do it?
No, because I've been on my sidecar as a newcomer in the
Of
sidecar
course, yeah.
class.
Well, we'll get to the
Yes.
lunacy of sidecars in a minute, I'm sure. But back then, I don't think you had to wear a jacket or anything, did you?
I do remember novice bibs, but that was obviously at the max.
Yeah.
But I used to sit with Eddie Roberts at Pirelli
Okay.
of an evening.
Trying to get free tyres.
And he would make me talk a lap. And that's how I learned
Did he
it
really?
with him.
Because Eddie, I was there when he won the Manx, Eddie did.
Oh, wow.
I think it's the first year I did the Manx, which would be 74 or something like that, and he was a great rider around there. So he'd get to talk a lap and
Yeah.
the jumps and the bumps and everything.
Yes.
But you must have driven round and round
Yes. And I did a little bit of that with the Barnets. But then more so going forward, when I went to the TT, David Jeffries used to take me around.
Okay.
John McGuinness, he was marshalling at the Manx Grand Prix one year, and I persuaded him to take me for a lap, and we did nearly a whole lap, and then it was getting close to roads closed, to the point where they were saying you're going to have to come off the course, and John's like, we need to get back, Maria's got to go out, and I was like, oh, I've got to be in my leathers now. And we ended up having to do the clips course back to the paddock, so we didn't actually finish it, but I got on my bike for that practice session and did the fastest ever lap, which was the second ever fastest female lap, thanks to his...
And
makes a difference.
he was telling you all the little tricks that you probably wouldn't learn.
Yes.
Like, the windrows with the gate here and the manhole cover.
Getting your markers and where to really go flat out, because there's a lot of talk, isn't there? Flat out in top here, flat out in top here, and it's not always.
No.
And that DJ was really good with me in that respect, that he brought it back to where I was.
Have you got a good memory? No, I mean, seriously, because learning a circuit like that, I think it does help a great deal, I really do.
Oh, it's massively important. I've had 20 years at it.
Yeah, but I guess it's not... you do absorb it because you kind of know that if you don't, you can die, or you can do. So there's an element of making sure that you are focused about it all. But do you think John McGuinness actually taught you a great deal about it, or was it the confidence that he possibly gave you?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
Bit of both.
Right.
Imagine, getting to just do a lap with him talking around.
And I don't wish to sound at all chauvinistic in any way. There's some of the things being a lady is difficult, some are easier. I guess it was easier to get the guys to help you in some ways, because they're probably not going to help a competitive bloke, are they?
You say that, but I used to get tested a lot by my mechanics. They'd send me out, they'd change my suspension, send me out, and I'd come in and I'd go, well, what's going on here? And they'd go, oh, you can work that out then, can you?
Okay.
And I'd go, yes, I can. Please
Right.
stop doing that.
Right. What,
So-
they go the wrong way or something?
Yeah, they'd just make it to see whether I was,
Yeah, I know
some
what
of
you
these
mean. They were
guys-
like checking that you could feel the differences,
Yes.
I guess. Right, okay.
which I don't always think is necessary.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if some mechanics are like that, because they kind of need to get feedback from you as well, I guess.
Which is all right on a short circuit, but we were doing this at the Isle of Man.
Right, okay.
But it was only some small occasions like that, and I've had some fantastic support and sponsorship, of course. I worked hard at it, but I was often the only female on the grid. I was able to give them publicity in a different way without having to win the race.
Yeah, no, without blowing smoke up your bum, you're very, very good at marketing yourself, and so you have to be, don't you? Because that's the only tool you've got without getting on the track, is to get the money to go and do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, let's kind of go back a little bit. I did make a point of having a look at some of the things that's gone on, and one of the things that scared the living daylights out of me, you got knocked off at the bottom of Bray Hill. Most people don't live through that. What year was this, or how early on in your TT career was it?
Yeah, that was that 2000, 2001?
Don't look at me, I don't know what day of the week it is.
I'm terrible with numbers. I'm terrible with my own history.
I would say it was in the 90s, was it not?
Late 90s and 99.
Right.
So it was when you set off in pairs. It was practice.
Right,
I was on a GT Motorcycles Fireblade,
right,
and it was a bit of a big old lump,
right.
won't lie. And
Early in the practice week, or?
no, I think it was towards the end of practice week.
Okay, right, okay.
And another rider clipped me at the bottom.
The bottom of Bray Hill, what, just got through and clipped the handbars? And clearly you must have pretty much slid up the
I
road.
rattled up that hill.
Because, that's the thing.
Fencing, but I was slightly concussed, thankfully. But then helicopter to Nobles. But that's one of those horrific times. My mum got the phone call from somebody else.
She wasn't on the island.
No, my mum's never been to the Isle of Man when I'm racing.
Right.
She's been to the Isle of Man, but not when I'm racing.
Right.
It's to be too much for her.
Right, okay.
But so that was.
So you were airlifted out of there, were you, did you go to Nobles or
It was
back?
the old Nobles.
Oh right, okay. You're better off missing that and go straight to Liverpool. Right? I'd have got the helicopter pilot to carry on, but you might have been knocked out.
I wasn't, I was lucky.
I mean, massively,
Really?
lucky, because seriously, not many people get away with that.
No.
Carl Fogarty's dad did, actually, one of the ones.
There was another famous one with that guy, that massive tank slapper down there.
Yeah.
He used to always come up to me and try and tell me about that, and I never wanted to know
No,
about it. I'm
yeah,
like, no, I can't remember really what happened, and I'm glad.
What injuries did you get?
What did I get? That was a long time ago.
Knocked about.
Nothing, just
Nothing
knocked
serious.
about, really bruised and battered.
And the sponsor's motorbike wasn't real good, was it?
No, maybe not.
Right, okay. When I saw that, I can't think there's many people. It's the first for me talking to a lady here at Brooklands, but it's also the first for me talking to someone that fell off at the bottom of Bray Hill, because normally that's it. So.
I haven't talked about that in a long time.
Right. Well, I don't wish to bring it
No,
up. because-
it's
Yeah. Is that your only tumble at the Isle of Man?
No.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, which hospital?
So, 2000 and...
I'm like you, no, just...
Terrible. Somebody needs to, I need one. It was
Just say mid-2000s or late. Or
2005. 2004, I stood on the podium at the Manx Grand Prix, first ever woman to stand on the podium in a race around the TT course. So the next year...
That was with John McGuinness, was it? Or was that the...
No, this is the Manx.
Manx, big one.
Yeah. And then the following year, Ricky Leddy built a fuel-injected 400, but it wasn't really ready, and it blew up, and we were having a terrible practice. I had a 600 as well, and the guy that I'd got on the podium, his bike, it was a Ricky Leddy bike, Tim Bradley, he got in touch, he said, I've been watching what you're doing, following all what's going on, it's dreadful for you. I've prepped the 400 you rode last year, shall I send it over on the boat? So I was like, absolutely, yes please. That arrived, we were running out of practice laps. They said, you've got to do 2 Maria to qualify. The conditions weren't great. I don't think I would have ridden normally, but I had to.
Yeah.
And came into Capelgate. Somebody else had crashed there. I went down, like, you know, don't even...
Oil or something, was it down?
There was something down.
Yeah.
And I ended up on the banking, broken femur, broken scapula, very winded. It was Dan Neen's dad who was marshalling.
Right.
And I remember him looking, oh my gosh, it's Maria. And I couldn't speak. Have you been winded? You must have been winded. It's horrible, isn't it? And you know that eventually you're going to breathe, eventually I was like, yes, it's me. And they got me on a board and helicoptered me out to Nobles again.
Wow.
They were the worst.
I bet that bloke wish he hadn't sent his bike out there.
Yeah, poor Tim.
Yeah, I do.
Do you know, he's let me race one of his bikes since.
Has he?
What an absolute angel.
Yeah, no, I have to say, some of the people that we're fortunate in the sport that we live in and worked in, that there are some very generous people out there, isn't there, that come along and, you know, they kind of do think it's more about you than the bike, you know, I mean, they've probably got thousands of pounds worth of damage to fix and they fix it up and let you go back out.
Absolutely. I mean, another one was Chris from Cusworth Bikes. I'd raced a couple of his bikes at the Isle of Man, and then he gave me one to ride in BSB, and I was in the production race or Superstock class, and I had a horrific crash at Silverstone out of Woodcote, and the bike smashed into like the concrete.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was supposed to give him that bike back at the end of the season, and I pretty much gave it back in a little box. And he let me race for him again, and he gave me a job.
Did he?
How amazing is that?
Yeah, quite extraordinary. So how many helicopters have you actually been in?
A few.
And you're as keen now as ever. I mean, I was there when you got on the podium. I remember seeing your face and smiley face, and so it should have been. You were on the podium with John McGuinness at the Classic TT. I can't remember who else it was actually. But
Dean Harrison.
Okay, right. You were riding the Paton, and I could see that it must have been a tremendous achievement and feeling for you.
Oh, that meant the world. That meant the world.
Yeah.
Racing that Paton, Peter Boyge's Paton, around the Isle of Man is one of the best things ever. And yeah, of course, I do actually remember on the last lap, because I'd been, the first time I rode that bike, I was leading the privateer class by 2 minutes and it blew up on Sulby Straight on the last lap. Yeah, broken hearted because I could almost taste the champagne. Anyway, so this year I'm like on the mountain and you're like, please finish, please finish.
But you start hearing noises, don't you, vibrations.
But I was also thinking, I hope John McGuinness is winning this race. I won't lie, because he's a hero of the sport.
It adds that element, doesn't it? It would be like being on the podium with Joey Dunlop or something like that.
To share the podium with John and him sort of rubbing my head like that and going, that's a decent lap time.
I spoke to him afterwards, and it's maybe a quote of mine that I got into trouble, but he said that lass has got balls, and you've got to have to go that hard on that sort of pace. It's a real feather in your cap, but you've been very fortunate again with some great sponsorship with the Paton bikes.
Well, that was all thanks to me racing for BMW. I'd gone to test some bikes in Slovakia ring, and there was a green pattern in the paddock, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. And of course, I'd eyed it up. Farquhar had all that success on it at the Classic, and my friends who I was riding these classic BMWs were like, they're Isle of Man fans. They know who you are. They want to meet you. And I actually had to go on this Paton just before I went home. And then I said to my friend Sebastian, I've missed a trick there. I should have asked him. If he would let me use it at the Isle of Man. He said, well, here's his email. Drop him a line. Did exactly that because I'm very cheeky. And Peter replied with, yes, let's do it. He'd been involved with Jim Moody on at 400 at the TT, and they loved the Isle of Man. And I don't think they really knew what they were, didn't really know me.
They watched the Isle of Man, but they'd never been there or competed?
No, they'd been there, like I say, they'd been...
But not with a bike?
But not with their Paton.
Right.
So Peter normally races this bike, and anyway, they had no expectation, which was great, but of course I did have. And because I think we had a start number of like 91 or something on the bike, we were really late entry, and then they seeded me for the race. And like I say, I was classed as a privateer, and I was leading the race by 2 minutes. Yeah, I really didn't want to blow it up. And Peter's an amazing engineer. He's since then made that bike a brilliant Isle of Man race bike, because as you know, it's such a challenge for the machine itself. And he made a lot of changes to the Paton, and then we went on to get that podium.
And you're still going to ride for him?
Well, it's really weird how I don't know at this moment in time, to be honest, because they did pull out after the last classic TT, which, as you can imagine, broke my heart. I think you're one of the few people I've told, because to lose that ride, but he has...
Well, he's here tonight.
We have been in touch. And
any idea with that great result? Is it a financial thing, do you think, or...?
I know what it is, and it's none of those things.
Right.
But I hope
his wife thinks he's looking
back.
at you. Can you not tell us? Won't go any further than this.
I don't know yet. I really don't know yet. But just everyone, please cross your fingers and toes, because I want to go back on that bike.
Well, let's tell him here, Peter. We want you back with that lovely Paton, because it is, like you say, you've only got to walk around it and you can just see that it's been built for the TT, really, isn't it?
The work and effort Peter puts into it, it's immaculate. And even the other guys running the Patons would go to Peter for advice, because he changed so many of the internal parts of it. And we've had a couple of fourths since. The boys are ferocious out there. They're not making it easy.
No, I'm sure. No one's ever made the TT easy. That is 100% certain. So you and all of us, I guess, in the world were devastated when TT got cancelled in 20, and then to have it again and classic 2 years on the run. It's just like someone's pulled the rug out from under you, isn't it? I mean, it's your main event, Northwest TT, Classic TT.
The TT means the world to me. It means so much to me. It means too much to me. And so to lose it that first year, but of course going into this crazy time, I could deal with that better than I could this one.
Yeah.
I was actually
because we all thought, well, we're okay, we're going to have to skip a year,
but not two.
Yeah.
I was working out in Tenerife, Triumph. Taylor Mackenzie's working on it as well. He disappeared to the toilet, came back, and then just blurted out, "Oh, they've cancelled the TT." I nearly burst into tears. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I went, "Taylor, you only get to do this once a year, and that's two gone."
Yeah, no, it's horrible. So, again, not wishing to pry, but financially it must affect you a lot as well.
Yes, it's been really tough.
Yeah. And it's hard to get sponsorship when you haven't got an event to go to and be involved with. And the good news is, though, and there is, I think that there's been an announcement, there's going to be bigger, better live TV, really going to town with it 2022. So I guess that's the only good part about it, really.
Yes. Oh yes, and I can't wait for that. And it does, all of that extra coverage, fingers crossed, will help me get the support that I need. So I'll be back there by
Crook, yeah, I'm sure. sure. And you also ride a pattern for Mark Coverdale?
Yes, so the modern pattern, which again, beautiful motorcycle. I've got my own super twin. I actually built with my boyfriend at the time, and that was my pride and joy. But when I got to try a pattern, I was like, wow, this is another level. This is, yeah. But it was 2019. We didn't get as much time on it as we wanted, and then the weather was horrendous. You couldn't. At one point, I thought we weren't going to get any racing in.
Sure, I remember. Yeah.
Everything was shortened. So I didn't get to do what I want to do on the pattern there yet.
Okay.
But I had the sidecar there as well.
Well, let's get on to that, I guess. We have to. Lunacy, I guess you'd say. What on earth made you think of cycle? I mean, I'm a fan of cycles. I have to say, I had some friends that raced. I passengered at the Southern 100 one year.
What, in a race?
Yeah. I was passenger at the Southern 100.
How bumpy is it there?
Very, very bumpy. And it got very bumpy at the S's because we spun out in the pouring rain. Ended up in a hedge, and he managed to get it back on the track, but I didn't get in it. I didn't see any point, really.
That's the one thing you must never do, let go as a passenger. That's what I...
Well, we were upside down at the time, so it felt appropriate that it might be best to get out rather than just get showered by petrol. And I passengered in a race at Snetterton and Alton Park.
So I can call you up anytime?
No, because I then went on to driving them. No, I didn't. No, you can't call me up because...
Come on, Steve.
I'm just trying to think of a good reason why you can't. Anyway. But
I think we should try that.
What on earth got you into sidecars then?
Yeah, what did? I think
I bet your mum now is flipping hell.
Well, she thought this was all going to stop a long time ago.
I'm sure she did,
right.
But then to say sidecars, she must have thought you definitely kind of lost the plot.
She loves it now. She loves it.
Well,
No,
it's because you get bigger decals and more sponsorship.
I think I started looking at sidecars differently. I won't lie. When I was back as a club racer, they were the ones that spilt the oil and spoilt the day, and I didn't particularly like them. I didn't know anything about them, so it was very ignorant of me. But I think I started looking at them. Friends introduced me to Tim Reeves, and seeing his amazing, immaculate machinery, I was like, well, there's a lot more to this. I actually did a passenger lap with Tim at an event at Donington, hated it, but really thought, oh, I'd like to have a go in driving one.
Yeah, it is hard. It's physically very demanding, isn't it? I did a Donington, did 5 or 6 laps with Darren Dixon's dad, who was world champion.
Yes.
And physically very, I mean, it's
as
hard.
A passenger?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, hats off to them.
Yeah, I did 5 laps. On lap 4, I was thinking, which is the slowest corner to jump out at? So I didn't hurt myself too much. But anyway, at 5 you stop. But very physically demanding, and a great deal of respect goes to the passengers. And I can't imagine what it's like around the TT.
I can't imagine what it's like around the TT. I'm much happier in control, and that's how it will stay.
How many laps have you done at the TT with the cycle?
Not that many, because that year the weather, everything. We had one full race, which is 3 laps, 1 2-lapper, and maybe a handful of practice laps, including my newcomers lap behind Dave Molyneux, which was
and
special.
the knowledge that you've got already from solos is tremendously important, but lines have got to be different because you've got to leave a bit more space on certain sides.
Yes.
Did you get that wrong at any point?
No.
All right, okay.
I did the first time I ever got in a sidecar.
Right.
I was at Brands Hatch, and you know the tunnel?
Yeah.
From the back. Yeah. I scraped.
Oh, down the side there.
It wasn't even my sidecar. So then I had a sticker on there.
Remember the sidecar, yeah. Was your passenger not on there at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. So you scraped her as well? No, it was him.
That was a lad. I was trying an F1 for just an experience, really.
Right, okay.
But
which way do you feel that your career is going to? Do you think more sidecars and solos, or the other way around? Or
I like the fact that I get to do loads of different stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give up solos.
Right.
No way.
Okay.
That's.
But you've been car racing a bit as well.
I've tried a little bit on four wheels.
Right. And you raced, was it Mini the other day or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where was that at?
Mini at Thruxton. Amazing fun. Those little cars.
Oh, I mean, I have to say, it is good fun. You don't quite get the kick from motorcycling, I guess,
No.
but you don't also get the pain. That's
Yes.
the upside of it, isn't it? If it's understeering, it kind of just goes wide and you pull it back and you don't slide across the grass and things like that.
Yeah. I have rolled a car.
Have you?
Yeah.
On the road or on the track?
On the track.
Right, talk us through that one.
Old
But,
hand.
another helicopter or not?
No, because that's what you're saying, isn't
Okay,
it?
yeah.
I mean, I actually landed back on my wheels, which was a good thing because the cars are still coming down Craner, and I was like, and I couldn't get out because the door was squashed in. So I was like, oh, start it, and I drove off up to the marshals, and I got, wow, I'm fine. And they were like, you need to go and see the doctor. I went, I don't, this is amazing.
What car was that in then?
That was an A35.
Oh, right, okay. I've got
Yes,
one of those. Yeah,
because we were in the team.
Yeah, so that was at Donington. What, before the Silverstone? After.
So from that drive in the Silverstone Classic, because my car broke in that race,
Right.
I never actually raced that day.
Right.
Anyway, so Julius Thurgood, who runs the HRDC Championship, he offered me a go in his car.
All right, and that was the one you rolled?
That was the one I rolled. But he's since put me out in other cars. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
I'm very
there is that side of it that I think you can, dare I say, you can go on a bit longer possibly on four wheels simply because you haven't got those helicopter trips and all the physicalities that go with motorcycle racing and stuff.
And the sidecar, because the sidecar's not as physical as a motorcycle, being a driver.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Any other ambitions then to, I mean, it's been sidecar, solos, four wheels, anything else that kind of you want to tick the
So
box on?
I held the female at record at the TT on 2 wheels. I'd quite like it on 3.
Who's got that at the moment?
Estelle Bond has
Who?
that French girl,
Okay.
and she achieved that as an all-female team at TT, obviously. And I think it's about 110 average, and I'd like to go after
What?
that.
You think that's possible? Well, I mean, I don't know what you've done so far.
So I did almost 103 in my first year.
Wow, okay. So that quite possible then, I think, you would have said that it would be, so that would be kind of nice to do. And then it will be, I'm trying to think what the rally car lap is around there, whether you're going to beat that one next, something along those lines. Okay, and so let's, we're coming to the end of the kind of where you're at with your racing and everything else like that. After racing, because it does become after racing, is it veterinary, motorcycle sales, anything else that really kind of, again,
Quite like what you do, Steve. I'd like to do some more of this stuff.
Okay, right. It's not easy, trust me. No.
It's easier than the TT.
See what?
It's easier than the TT.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's not as exciting. That's the only kind of
No.
downside of it. But
Obviously, I want to carry on racing for as long as I can, as long as my body will allow me. Maybe not at all the super competitive stuff, but I just want to be still competing on something until they stop me.
yeah, sure. It's difficult to stop, and there's been a lot of talk recently about mental issues, I guess you could say, and I believe intently for sports people stopping what they're doing is very, very difficult, and that must apply, I don't know, because I'm not a footballer, I'm not a cricket player or rugby player or anything, but I know in the sport that I'm in, which you're in, stopping is difficult, and a lot of people say, well, why don't you stop, at the peak of your career and so on and so on. It's such a passion, it's something you're involved with, and you get such a buzz from it, and when you do stop, and I did it, I fortunately went on to run a team, so it kind of gave me a bit of involvement. But you see people that stop and you never see them again because they daren't come back. And it's like someone's taken something away from you, your legs nearly, that you can't go out there, you can't get the fun, the excitement, the adrenaline and all that goes with it. Because it's impossible, no matter what you try to do, particularly in a normal day's work or life.
There's nothing like the TT, is there?
No.
And that's what, COVID, stopping the TT for these 2 years has made me go, yeah, I definitely don't want to stop yet.
No.
I don't want to.
Now, I just want to ask you another question. Over the years, you've always been very nervous in my company. Why?
I don't need to answer that.
But no, but I've never done anything nasty to you, have I?
No, of course not.
But
Do I look nervous now?
No, you don't now, but that's why I'm hoping that this is kind of iron things out. But there's always been that element of, well, I'm not going anywhere near him in case he does this to me or whatever.
No, I'm just... you are the joker of the pack, Steve.
I think that's in the past.
I don't. You've definitely caught me out at the bike show a few times. I've definitely found a few extra things in my handbag.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot all that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I can only apologise. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a great deal about you, Maria, and I'm sure everyone else out there has as well. I'm sure you've got an awful lot of admirers anyway, but you must have a lot more now, because I don't think anyone quite realises how tough it is to go racing, particularly as a lady, because you're like, it's not the norm, is it? So you've had to work a lot harder, because when you're knocking on someone's door, arguably some people won't take you seriously.
Massively. And look, it's tough, isn't it? Full stop, it's tough, this sport.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been doing it a long time. Back at the beginning, I was going up to sponsors and things, and of course, it's different sponsoring a female than it is a male, and I'm like, why? But I do understand it now.
Yeah.
But things are changing,
yeah.
and I'm glad, and we are seeing more women in the sport. But I don't know when we're going to see more women at the Isle of Man, because look how tough it's getting now.
Sure. Okay. Well, you've done a great job for women racers out there. I know you work very hard with the sort of industry of women in racing and everything else. I applaud you. So there you go, and there's the mouse that's always scared the living daylights out of me over the years.
Oh, so let me know, Steve, that's not going to work.
Well, I have heard you've got mice at home, so I don't know that. What I have got to do, and I would like to do before we finish up, is offer you, and this is seriously very, very valuable, this is a piece of the circuit here at Brooklands, the bank circuit, a very piece that's come out that's been polished nicely for that. You and I have both ridden here today.
Yes,
we
rode
an OK Supreme, which had a Jap engine today on the banking around here, and I would have said this is the most exciting thing you're going to have done this week. It certainly is for me anyway.
Absolutely.
And this is from Brooklands, a lovely piece of the track, really. So there you go. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Brooklands. We would love to have had a full audience here tonight, but unfortunately we can't. We will have some more, no doubt about it, possibly later this year, certainly next year, when it will be full capacity and everyone will be back to normal. And we wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Could I just ask a question about the pattern?
Yeah.
The classic pattern, what sort of speed was that doing in the island?
Top speed, I think it's 145. And literally, John, we were all exactly the same top speed, which fascinates me.
Because
she
he's
wants
twice
a lot
your
bigger
size.
than me.
Downhill though, he'll go well.
But he had the big fairing on way before I did.
Do you know where they do the top speed now? 'Cause it used to be on the Sulby Straight. But I am told, in fact I know, that you actually go faster from Craignabar down that hill.
Right.
They've always had the speed trap at Sulby Straight, which is probably fairer in some ways, but the actual, I bet you're going to notice now, next time you go back, you check your revs on the way down from the Craig, down that hill there, because it's flat through the kink.
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely flat through the kink.
There you go.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we close, thank you both for being with us today. It's been a pleasure. I include you in that, Steve. And thank you for riding out on the track this afternoon. It's been a pleasure to meet you both. And thank you for your time this evening. Steve Parrish, Maria Costello.